What's going on YouTube? Corbells here, back with another Scarlet Violet video, and today we're going to be going over the top cores and team compositions that you can play right now in regulationH. So this weekend is finally Baltimore Regionals. You're going and you still don't know what to play. You're nervous, you're anxious, but have no fear, the Clover Academy has you covered. Okay, maybe you already know what you're playing, but you don't quite know what to prepare for. We also can help you with that. Or maybe you're not going to Baltimore at all, and maybe you're just, sitting at home, just trying to play VGC, trying to learn the game, get better at it. And by far, we've got you covered for that as well. So we're catering to everyone here with something like this. So hopefully we can inspire you and at least give you some advice in your team building by going over these cores and compositions. So this way you too can succeed with whatever it is that you have in terms of your goals, right? So without further ado, let's go ahead and talk about our first composition. Okay, I think you always have to start here, right? Archaludon Pelipper, pretty much commands a lot of the meta right now. It's the #1 team to beat, and it should be on everyone's radar going into Baltimore, or even if you're just sitting at home, it should be about 70-80% of the teams that you're playing against right now. So it's usually centered around these three mons, at least they should be, with Pelipper, Archaludon, and Amoonguss. With, again, you have the weather control from the Pelipper, which, let me just put yourself here, which again can help you set up your ramp up damage from the electro shots. And then also technically your body press can also ramp up in damage if you're taking chip damage, incorrectly from what the targeting of your opponent. And then over here, the Amoonguss with this defensive backbone here, where you can just heal the Archaludon up even though it's taking damage. So now all of a sudden you're just getting body press, buffs for free, right? And then, just gives you that Trick Room matchup overall. Does great in rain because, again, you're a grass type. You're taking reduced fire damage. So, and then you get to redirect a lot of the fighting super effective moves away from the Archaludon. You resist that because of your poison typing. So a lot is going from just these three Pokemon alone, right? Then from here, you can kind of decide, look, I could lead with Pelipper Archaludon and start that way, or I can even finish my games with Pelipper Archaludon, depending on the rest of my team. So typically, they'll also run some stuff like Basculegion, where again, you can start strong, with Basculegion, or you can just flip turn out and then just go with the last respect stuff in the end game, with the Pelipper Rain, because this way you outspeed the rest of the format. Then sometimes these teams will also have Kingambit, another steel type, or even Gholdengo for that matter, not usually both. But a steel type is always strong to have on a team like this, where again, taking reduced fire damage, Kingambit gives you that Trick Room and even the Psyspam matchup a little bit. Gholdengo also does very good on teams like this, especially if the Pelipper has Tailwind, because now you can start strong and basically say, I'm going to click Tailwind, I'm going to click Make It Rain, do tons of damage, and clean up in the end game with either something like Basculegion or Archaludon, right? Sometimes you'll even see Incineroar on these kinds of compositions just to give you a Fire, Water, Grass core. And then at the same time, Incineroar just gives you a lot of flexibility depending on positioning, where you can always Parting Shot, as well as even Fake Out and set up, something like a nasty plot from the Gholdengo if you want to go that route. But at the same time, again, another dark type that can help you in that Psyspam matchup. It can also help you intimidate some of the physical options that are running around. Not as much in this format, by the way. A lot more special attackers this time around. But which again shows, has resulted in a little bit of a drop of Incineroar's value, but it's still very useful on teams like this. So this is a very standard 6 that you'll probably run into, just in terms of playing the Pelipper, Archaludon, Amoonguss core. So again, starting strong with Archaludon or even ending strong with Archaludon, and then Basculegion, same thing. You can either start or you can end with it. Another way you can also consider this is if you go the Salamence route. So Salamence and Kingambit at the same time is also very, very strong. You'll probably see some stuff like this, where again, the Salamence can also exert pressure, with the Life Orb. It's also another Tailwind setter that you have to be aware of. This thing just won Victory Road, right? So it was the same 6 that we put out for our rental, but again, just, slight variance in the sets. But it's still, the way it plays is more or less the same. So you could even see something like this, where again, you have this double dragon idea with Salamence and the Archaludon. But again, you can also give yourself Intimidate, not having to rely on Incineroar. And then after that, then you can end the game, with your strong water type in the Basculegion, right? So this is another way to use this Archaludon Pelipper Rain matchup. Now, sometimes you'll see some variants, and you may not even see Amoonguss, and sometimes you'll probably just see the other strong grass type that can do well in Trick Room, and that's the Sinistcha. Okay, now these types of teams look a little bit different in the sense that they'll also run Maushold, and they'll also run Annihilape here, and then they'll also run something like Hydreigon. This is the Alt Kyle special, as I like to say. You know, shout outs to Alt Kyle, one of the top players right now, I would say. And you know, he inspired a lot of our six, you know, with this, you know, from our rental, of course. So again, we can't take full credit, right? We reference Alt Kyle in a couple of our teams in the past, but again, look at this. You've got your Psyspam matchup with the Hydreigon here. The Sinistcha can come in and just give you that Trick Room matchup, and then at the same time redirect the fighting damage against the Hydreigon and the Archaludon. It can support you, you know, with stuff like Matcha Gotcha. You have Follow Me, you have Rage Powder. I almost said Follow Me, right? And then technically the Maushold also can do the same thing, right? Follow Me here. You can set up the Annihilape, you know, with bulk up stuff, and then even the Hydreigon, which likes to run the Scope Lens, Focus Energy stuff. So you have two ways to do that. Again, you can always use the Maushold way with Follow Me. You can use the Rage Powder, Sinistcha idea. But again, Hydreigon, like the Salamence, is exerting that special dragon type on the team, you know, for damage pressure besides the Archaludon here. So this is another way of using the Rain archetype. But again, lots of variants in terms of the six, but I feel like it's always Pelipper, Archaludon, plus some grass type, and maybe a dark type that can do well into the Psyspam matchup. But they'll also have a strong steel type, whether it be that King Gambit, like we mentioned, or potentially the Gholdengo. So I feel like these are the two six, or you know, in terms of the six most common types of Archaludon Rain teams. There are others, of course, but I feel like the most common ones and the ones that are easy to just pick up are the two variations that I showed you here. So next up is actually my favorite art type to play right now, and this is the Trick Room Balance idea. So basically your Porygon 2 is your Trick Room setter. It's a very bulky Trick Room setter, and it needs a little bit of help though still. So usually you'll have something like Incineroar and or Amoonguss on the team where you can have Fake Out into Trick Room. So this way you can at least stop one big attack to set up that Trick Room, and then you can Parting Shot and make something weaker and position yourself by bringing in either something like an Ursaluna or one of the other six that we haven't mentioned yet. So basically the name of the game is, you know, make good value out of your Trick Room turns, because again, the Ursaluna is under a clock, and the more that you can take advantage of those Trick Room turns and exert pressure, then the more your opponent is on the back pedal, right? So again, also the Porygon 2 can also exert some decent offense, because these things are usually going to be something like Quiet Nature, where they'll have something like Terra Blast along with Ice Beam coverage and then Recover. So the Terra Blast can be a couple things. It can be the earlier stuff with Terra Blast, Terra Flying, which is great against fighting types, because again, flying resists fighting. Porygon 2 originally is weak to fighting, and then now all of a sudden you can blast those fighting types with Terra Blast, Terra Flying, or some recent development, you know, from recent tournaments. You can also do Terra Fighting, Terra Blast, which is great against something like a King Gambit, which is also rising amongst the format. So you could do something like that if you really need to. You know, it's really helpful depending on the scenario, but it really just is situational depending on the player. Then from here is something like Gholdengo here, and Gholdengo is like one of the best S tier Pokemon that you could use right now besides Archaludon. And Gholdengo just clicking Make It Rain, you know, just does so much damage. You could even run Nasty Plot on something like this, where you have the Fake Out pressure, you have the redirection support to be able to set up the Nasty Plot and then just potentially wipe away your entire opponent's team, right? Then from here, you could do something like Tyranitar, where you can have weather control against the Pelipper and Torkoal teams, because again, if you're setting Trick Room, Torkoal looks really good under Trick Room, but not so good anymore when you can just swap in your Tyranitar and take away said weather. So you can do that, or you can do what I like to do and just play Kamo-O on the Ursaluna Trick Room idea. And you know, this is one of our rentals. I believe we had Primarina in the Gholdengo slot anyway. So now you see the balance idea where you have Dragon, Fairy, Steel, Fire, Water, Grass. The Steel type, of course, coming from the combo, you know, with the Terastallization available to it, right? So you have the redirection, you have the Incineroar here to potentially set up your Clangorous Soul Clanging Scales. You can also do the Iron Defense Body Press stuff with this, and this has also been successful with the leftover stuff. So you can also do some setup like this. This is also very, very strong. So again, this is great into those Archaludon teams for that matter. And then at the same time, you know, the Primarina is going to give you Haze. That's good for Dondozo. That's good for Maushold and Annihilape stuff that want to click bulk up stuff. So this is also useful in that regard. You can also haze away, you know, intimidate debuffs against the Ursaluna, which is one of the reasons why I put Primarina on a team like this. Because sometimes just getting intimidated is just not fun, but you can wipe them away with haze. So some people always forget about that idea, but that's the reasoning behind that. You can also just simply do Primarina and not have to do the combo. You could even just do Primarina and just Gholdengo, and this is also still like very strong. You know, you can give up the dragon type, and this will always be very, very solid all in all. And then at the same time, you don't even have to run Primarina. You could even do another dragon type. You could even do Dragapult, right? Just something that, you know, is fast and it can hit very hard. Again, Dragapult commands a lot of the speed tier meta because you are the fastest dragon, and there's not too much fairies running around right now. There's no more Flutter Mane. Whimsicott is a little bit limited, so, you know, not too much are resisting the Dragon Dart stuff. So Dragapult looking really good on a team like this as well. And then at the same time, what I love to do is this, where you have the Choice Band U-turn stuff. So you could even do Dragapult Porygon leads, and you could do Trick Room U-turn into the Ursaluna, and then next turn go ham under the Trick Room stuff. So I like playing that kind of idea as well, and so do most opponents, right? So you just have to consider what these players like to do, but I've shown you different variations of this for already. But again, it just depends on how you want to, you know, play the squad. You could do Dragon stuff, you could do Primarina stuff like I showed you, or you can just also rely on weather control by using that Tyranitar. I think those are the most easiest way to use this type of idea, you know, with the Trick Room Balance stuff. Next up is Dondozo, which again also commands a lot of the meta in terms of team building, just like Archaludon Rain. You gotta have haze. People are, you know, if you ever see haze on a team, this is the reason why. Because again, you have to wipe away those Dondozo buffs. You can also use Clear Smog from stuff like Amoonguss, Torkoal, Gengar. Well, Gengar has haze, but you know what I mean. So that's how you kind of have to deal with Dondozo, because again, they're gonna come at you with Dondozo lead, but not necessarily with Tatsugiri, right? Like they'll have something like Talonflame here where they can maybe ideally protect Dondozo turn one, go for Tailwind, so this way they can get speed control against Tailwind teams. And then from there, maybe even swap in the Tatsugiri, so this way now Dondozo's under Tailwind and can potentially sweep you, right? Again, you know, just boosting itself up with Order Up, doing more damage. You'll have the standard Wave Crash. Then you'll either have stuff like Earthquake, you know, for good +2 spread damage, or you'll even have some stuff like Substitute, which is pretty useful against the Intimidate cycling that people want to do against Dondozo. So that's also really nice there. And then it also gives you a little bit of leverage in the Trick Room matchups, because you can always alternate Substitute and Protects to stall out those Trick Room turns. So that's one other way to consider it. Then you can also just start out strong with stuff like Talonflame, Gholdengo, right? So you literally want to just click Tailwind turn one, and then Gholdengo. Usually this will just be Make It Rain choice specs, do tons of damage early on, and let Dondozo clean up the scraps in the back, right? So that's how you can also play it. You know, Gholdengo doing tons of damage with choice specs. But then from here, it really just depends on what you want to do in terms of your six. If you want to do Glamora like I like, then that's also another good solid lead where you can just do the Talonflame Glamora stuff and then bring Dondozo Tatsugiri in the back. So this way Glamora can just set the poison, set the toxic spikes on the field in the early get-go and let everything take a bunch of poison damage, and then let Dondozo stall out those opponents by, again, just walling them with your +2 defenses, +2 special defenses, alternating protects, and then they're just taking so much poison damage over time, and then they can just clean you up when you've taken enough damage, right? So that's another way to consider. And then from here, you know, you could either do stuff like Palmot, you know, where you can bring back the Dondozo because of Revival Blessing, or you could say, I don't really like Palmot, I want a little bit more damage, and you can do Dragonite, which is, again, this 6 is one of our rentals that we put out, and it also got second place in the recent Victory Road challenge. So I'm glad to say that, you know, we kind of got it right in the early get-goes, because again, that tournament was, recently, so that's good. Means we knew what we were doing in terms of our building. But again, it's just all about analyzing data, by the way. So that's how we build our teams. We look at data and we see what's successful, and then we just build around those strong cores, and that's how we're able to pump out so many teams on the channel. But anyway, so you can even do stuff like this. Sometimes you don't even have to bring Dondozo. These 4 can do a lot already. So you can just do Talonflame, Tailwind stuff, then you can taunt, Will-O-Wisp things, let things, take less disrupt them, and at the same time, let Dragonite do tons of damage with the Choice Band. Again, blow things up with Extreme Speed, Outrage, of course. Not too many things resisting Dragon at the moment. And then at the same time, Ice Spinner for, removing Psychic Terrain, which is also really, really strong. So you can just do something like this. And this 6 will always be good. Now, there's other variants to this. I've also seen some stuff like this where you have Tyranitar, and you'll also have stuff like Lycanroc. So you can even do this in terms of like a Dondozo Sand variant. I've seen this a lot. But for the most part, it's always going to be the Talonflame Gholdengo cores with the last 2 slots, depending on where you want to take the team. All right, next up, we'll look at the Volcarona Fire Water Grass core here. So basically, some people like to even call this Volcarona Balance. And the whole idea is to really use Volcarona as your endgame win condition. So after 1 or 2 Quiver Dances, Volcarona's in a really, really good spot and can pretty much just sweep the opponent. And usually these other 2 moves are either your Fire move and Giga Drain, along with Protect here. Sometimes you don't even use Fiery Wave. I wanted to say Heat Wave there. Sometimes you'll just rely on Fiery Dance if you're just scared of missing. But either way, something like this is pretty standard, where you have the idea of, supporting Volcarona's lack of physical bulk, with an Intimidate supporter, something like the Paldeantorials here. And then at the same time, you have the Fake Out pressure from the Rillaboom to enable the Quiver Dance setup already, from the opening get-go. And again, it's really all about making sure that Volcarona is in a really good spot where it can Quiver Dance, especially against passive teams that maybe need to rely on setup in the get-go. Volcarona can kind of capitalize on that. And then just potentially set up its own Quiver Dance and sweep teams. Then from here, you just want to patch up certain matchups here. So something like King Gambit is always appreciated on something like this. And like Volcarona, being super weak to rock types. So you need something to help you deal with Tyranitar. All these Pokemon can kind of deal with Tyranitar. So that's really good. Then you have something like Clefable here as another partner. Another Redirector that doesn't care about a lot of the buffs, from something like Dondozo or Annihilape there. So Unaware, Follow Me is always really, really strong. So that's kind of good. And again, you have Fake Out, Redirector, and Intimidate support. Again, all 3 things are great for setting up Volcarona with this Quiver Dance. Then from here, I've seen a couple of Pokemon that can fill in this last slot. I've seen Gengar, of course, with Gengar having access to Haze. Mainly, Shadow Ball is really strong, against stuff like Gholdengo for that matter. Sludge Bomb, also good. Nuke the Primarinas. And then at the same, you just do a Protect here with the Focus Sash. I've seen this. I've also seen Glamora here. Again, just early game offense, just with dealing tons of poison damage with the Sludge Bomb stuff, along with the Power of Meteor Beam shenanigans. You can also go in that regard. You can even just swap this out and just go with something like Dragapult. And I think Dragapult also works out here on teams like this, where, again, Dragon, Fairy, Steel, Fire, Water, Grass. This is also like pretty good. So again, just do some early game aggression, and then, have Volcarona be in the right position later on, where you can just set up this Quiver Dance and sweep the opponent. But that's really the name of the game here, is just try and get Volcarona in front of a favorable matchup, and then just set up these Quiver Dances, and then you're kind of fine from there. Next up, we have to talk about Psyspam. Psyspam is always like interesting. People always respect it. And I can't remember the last time I've seen Psyspam win a regional, but it's always like so oppressive, kind of like Dondozo. You just have to have something on your team to deal with it. This is one of those archetypes where, like, yeah, you can go 6-3 or even make day 2, but from there, you're going to need a little bit of variance to outsmart some of the other teams that are within day 2. But as a result, either way, it's still very strong in what it's supposed to do. You start off here with the Indeedee, getting Psychic Terrain, Follow Me, Trick Room stuff, and then Helping Hand, make all 3 of these sweepers do tons of damage. And then at the same time, again, you know, with Psychic Terrain, you're able to remove Rillaboom's terrain, which is really good because Rillaboom, #1 in usage. And then at the same time, stop priority moves against stuff like Torkoal because, again, Eruption thrives when you have maximum amount of HP. And one way to really get around that is to click priority moves against the Torkoal. But you can't do that if you have the Indeedee Psychic Terrain here. And then Hatterene is another Pokemon here. The patented Sword Shield duo, Indeedee, Hatterene. You know, again, with Hatterene, you're just having Life Orb, just doing tons of damage with Expanding Force. Hence the Psyspam matchup. And then from here, you can go into the Torkoal after they remove the Indeedee when, you know, you click Follow Me. Then you can just click Eruption, Expanding Force, double spread move. You can even go into the Ursaluna. Again, your physical sweeper on the team. So look at this. You have double Trick Room Setter, Trick Room Redirector, Trick Room Sweeper, Trick Room Sweeper. This is like the core of the squad. But then from here, this is where you have to kind of think where the Psyspam matchup kind of struggles with. And usually it's something along the lines of a Dark type or Incineroar. You know, the Hydreigon, King Gambit. These are all Pokemon that can kind of sit in front of Psyspam and still do relatively well. Hence the reason why they have Gallade on a team like this, where you need a strong fighting type against those Dark types that are running around to have against the Psyspam matchup. So again, Gallade will give you another Trick Room Setter. So you can even do Gallade, Indeedee, and then again Sharpness, where you have your slicing moves multiplied by 1.5. So stuff like Sacred Sword, really good, especially against Dondozo, where, you know, you just ignore all those defense boosts that Dondozo gets. Same thing with Archaludon, all those defense boosts that it has gotten for the body press stuff, you can just ignore that with Sacred Sword and just KO it. Then you have Psycho Cut in terrain, which is really, really good damage. Then you have Wide Guard at the same time. Again, Wide Guard, really good against opposing spread moves. You can even Earthquake next to your Gallade in this manner. So you have to consider it like that. Then this last Pokemon here, you know, it just really depends on how you want to play. I've often seen like the Lilligant, Torkoal stuff, of course. Again, with the after you Eruption plays, you can even consider it like that. I've also seen, and of course Sleep Powder for that matter, I've also seen Armarouge on teams like this. Now, you might say, why would you run Armarouge when you already have Hatterene? For a few reasons. One, this also gets Meteor Beam, okay? You know, you can do Power Meteor Beam stuff if you have, I'm sorry, what is that, Power Herb? Yeah, there we go. Power Herb, Meteor Beam stuff, which can nuke the Incineroars. And then at the same time, you have Expanding Force, you have Trick Room for that matter. And then you have a hard-hitting fire move that you can also buff with Torkoal here. So something like Armor Cannon is also really strong. And then just Flash Fire overall is really nice against opposing fire types. So again, if an opponent wants to bring another Torkoal to your team, you know, you have Flash Fire here that you can kind of soak it up. At the same time, you know, this speed here makes it so that you can even run Tailwind on this. So now Armarouge, you know, with base 75, not too fast, but not too slow. But then Tailwind, along with Trick Room, allows it to thrive in both archetypes. So you'll even see something like, you know, Whimsicott on teams like this in various scenarios. But at the same time, you know, you don't have to even run Armarouge and Gallade and Hatterene on the same team. It's definitely viable, of course, but you'll definitely see some differences. You can even have, instead of the Armarouge here and Gallade, you can even have stuff like Annihilape here. I've seen this too, like Annihilape, Choice Scarf, Final Gambit stuff. Again, just very easy setup, very linear though, so you have to kind of watch out for that because it makes it very obvious in terms of what you're trying to do. So again, with the Final Gambit, you're just trying to pick up KO immediately, go click Trick Room, bring in the Torkoal for free, or even the Ursaluna for free, and then just potentially start sweeping. So I've definitely seen stuff like that. So I also, at the same time, I've also seen Hisuian Zoroark. So like the Zoroark, I typed it wrong. Zoroark over here. Yeah. Again, the illusion stuff is kind of annoying. You know, with the choice specs, this Zoroark can do tons of damage. It can take the form of something in the back. And you have to play the guessing game. And sometimes if you just get the guessing game wrong, you lose. So it's also something to be aware of, all things considered. So again, the Psyspam matchup is very straightforward in terms of how you want to play it, but it's going to be those tech choices and niche options that's going to make all the difference. So just be aware of that. Next up, we'll talk a little bit about Sneasler, along with this duo with Dragapult and Rillaboom here. So a couple of things to note, you know, with these three. I'll even put Dragapult over here, actually. So think about Dragapult and what could do well against Bolt right now. It's fairy types and dark types. Well, Sneasler is the perfect, well, I wouldn't say perfect, but it's also an excellent partner with Dragapult because why? You have a fighting type for those dark types, which is great into Dragapult, and then at the same time, you have poison coverage against the fairies that are also pretty good against Dragapult. So you need this against the Primarina stuff, and then this is also where Rillaboom can come into play, again, also for Primarina at the same time. And then just Rillaboom setting the grassy terrain makes it so that you have the option to even just go Unburden with the Grassy Seed and then proc that and then, you know, get your defense boost, but at the same time, you know, just double your speed altogether. So now you outspeed everything. And I really like these three on the same team. I think they have a lot of good core synergies just in terms of their coverage for each other. And then after this, you can just go straight balance by having a fire type and a water type. So you could even just do stuff like Primarina here, your own Primarina, and then you could even do like Volcarona, or you could even do like Incineroar here. So like a fire type, a grass type, and a water type makes a lot of sense here. So then at the same time, look, you've got Rillaboom here with potential Fake Out to set up the Volcarona, which is really nice, again, with the Quiver Dance. So you can also consider that. Then don't forget, Sneasler also gets Fake Out. So you have double Fake Out here with Rillaboom and Sneasler that can also set up Volcarona in this sense. And again, just all these Pokemon here that have a good synergy with each other. And then after this, you can add something like a Steel type here. You can even add a King Gambit here, or you can even add something like Gholdengo. It's still like totally fine at the end of the day. But at the end of the day, at the heart of its core, it's really all about Sneasler, Dragapult, and then with the addition of Rillaboom here, I think it's really strong for all things considered. Again, you could even just lead Sneasler, Dragapult turn 1, and you know, if you outspeed everything from there, great. You could U-turn into your Rillaboom here, so now the Sneasler can proc its Unburden stuff with the Grassy Seed and then just go from there. You could do Rillaboom, Volcarona. You could do Sneasler, Volcarona with Rillaboom in the back. Lots of different ideas, you know, with this 5. But again, it's all about, you know, dealing heavy damage with your Dragapult in the early get-go, and then have Sneasler or Volcarona in the end game, potentially either sweeping, you know, with the Grassy Seed, Unburden stuff, or just having the Quiver Dance end game where you get to wall out a lot of these special attackers and then just go from there. But the other ways you can also consider it is if you just have stuff like this where you have Electabuzz and Kingambit. I've also seen like the Electabuzz idea where again you have this bulky Vital Spirit Follow Me user with Taunt and also Electroweb for speed control, which is something that the team somewhat needs a little bit. So if you have a bulky, you know, Electroweb user, then that would make Dragapult outspeed other Tailwind teams. So that's also really useful. And then Kingambit helps you in Trick Room matchups, helps you in the Psyspam stuff. Which again, something that Sneasler kind of struggles against, you know, again with the psychic weakness. That's where Kingambit has good synergy here on a team like this at the same time. So you can even just consider that. But overall, I think Sneasler and Dragapult are a really good duo. I think they're gonna see some good play coming up over this weekend. But if you needed like a really cool balanced ladder team, you could even just use something like this. Hisuian-Typhlosion Hyper offense is surging as of late in Regulation H. And again, if you're like a newer player or like a casual player and you're just looking to pick up a team right here, right now, I would recommend this type of archetype. It's very easy in terms of how you want to play it. You want to set up your Tailwind from the Whimsicott, and you just want to hit super hard and hit super fast with stuff like Blood Moon, Ursaluna, and the Hisuian-Typhlosion. How are you going to do that? You're going to click the Eruption button. So kind of like Torkoal, where if you have like full HP, Eruption is just going to do tons of damage, especially if you have either Choice Specs or something like a Charcoal. You know, again, big damage is what you want. And then at the same time, Blood Moon Ursaluna has pretty good synergy here on this kind of team. You're going to want to go Timid 252 on something like this with the Blood Moon. And then at the same time, max special attack, you know, with the Life Orb here. So again, just spread damage galore, Hyper Voice, or just do big damage early on with like Blood Moon. Bring in either one from the back if you lead one over the other, and then just potentially sweep teams if they aren't prepared. Now, one thing you can also consider is, again, to stop this, use a priority Pokemon like, you know, Jet Punch Palafin or Sucker Punch Kingambit. So that works, but this is where you add stuff like Furrygraph here, which is what we did in our rental, where you can stop priority moves altogether. Then you could do Trick Room on this. So this way, if you play against the Tailwind Mirror, you can flip them upside their head by going for Trick Room. And then you can even stop other Trick Rooms by, you know, just going for like Imprison Trick Room stuff. I think this is really strong. And then from here, now you could add something super aggressive and something physical like the Dragapult yet again. So now Dragapult normally is the fastest thing in the format, and one thing people are doing is setting up Tailwind, so this way they can outspeed the Dragapult, but now you have your own Tailwind, and now there's nothing outspeeding Dragapult, and now you could just hit really, really hard with something like Choice Band here. You could go U-turn if you want. You could just nuke something with Outrage, or you can do big spread damage with Dragon Darts. So I highly recommend this. This part is now different from our rental. We went a different direction. But again, just having Dragapult with Ferrograph is always going to be very, very strong because, again, you deny King Gambit, Sucker Punch, again, against both of these options. So again, it somewhat feels weird to have double Ghosts, but it works here just because, you know, these are two very different Pokemon and how they want to work. Then after that, you could do something like Primarina here. Again, just having that Dondozo matchup, you know, with Haze, and something that is, you know, just also aggressive, you know, both in Trick Room and Tailwind. You can do it like that. You can even do the Paldean Tauros for your water type. Now you get Intimidate on the team, and you get another strong physical attacker on your side. So lots of different ways that you can technically build this hyper offensive duo. But again, it's just all around, you know, with the Tailwind setter and the Whimsicott. Then you also have, by the way, you also have Encore here. Then you have the hyper offensive stuff coming from Typhlosion and Bloodwind or Ursaluna dealing tons of damage, and then Ferrograph is your support option, you know, either for the Trick Room matchup or even against the Trick Room matchup. Alright, now let's look at Maushold on a different type of archetype. Besides the Pelipper Rain stuff, I think Maushold Screens is also quite strong. Again, the whole thing is you kind of have to play a little bit of a guessing game with the Maushold and Annihilape. Yes, they have Follow Me. Yes, they have Beat Up, okay? And then at the same time, the Annihilape has the Rage Fist, the bulk up stuff, and then at the same time it has, what's that fighting move, Drain Punch. Okay, we know this. Okay, but then you add another dimension to the team when you just add Grimmsnarl Screens with Light Screen and Reflect stuff. So now all of a sudden you have screens, you have redirection, all the tools that you need to be able to set up all this bulk up stuff, and then you're just hiding behind the screens and dealing big damage, soaking up damage, making sure that your Rage Fist is doing a lot more damage now, and then at the same time your bulk up, now you're getting recovery with leftovers, and then at the same time, look, you're getting a bunch of damage boosts with the plus attack buffs, and then you're also getting defense buffs because of the bulk up, and then you add light screen to this. Now all of a sudden the Annihilape becomes relatively difficult to remove, and then from here you just patch up your matchups. So what are you going to do against Archaludon Rain stuff? I've seen this team go with Gastrodon, you know, with the Storm Drain stuff, and you're a ground type, so you know you can deal super effective damage into the Archaludon. They can't click Electro Shot into you because of that ground typing, so that's really nice. And then you just have stuff like Yawn and or Clear Smog, so now all of a sudden this is great into the Trick Room matchup because again you're really, really slow, so your Yawns go first, put things to sleep, remove Dondozo buffs. You know, with Clear Smog, Gastrodon has a ton of utility on this kind of core, so I like these four just as a whole. And then after this, you can have, you know, a Trick Room setter like Ferrograph deny potential priority stuff because again, Rillaboom wants to click Grassy Terrain into Grassy Glide into Gastrodon. You can deny that with the Ferrograph, so this is always a pretty good starting point just in terms of the screens idea with Maushold and Annihilape. Now, if you don't want to do that, if you want to make the team a little bit more aggressive, then from here, you can actually do the Pelipper Archaludon stuff, right? Which we kind of already mentioned previously, but now you can add them back, and this time go with the screens. So now Archaludon with the Assault Vest is now hiding behind the screens. So now you have a special defense boost with the Assault Vest, and then you can add Reflect here. So now you're tough to break, you know, physically, and then you're getting all these stamina boosts with the body press stuff, of course, and then at the same time you can always beat up into your own Archaludon and just go from there. So you could definitely even consider something like this if you really want to. But again, the other way you consider, besides the screens and then the Archaludon Pelipper stuff, is to just go straight up Maushold and just do straight up Talonflame and Gholdengo stuff with Rillaboom and Primarina here. So this is your Fire, Water, Grass core, obviously, and then just dealing tons of damage with Tailwind, Make It Rain, and then Primarina. Again, here's your Haze user for Dondozo stuff. You know, these four alone can potentially win you games. Now, all of a sudden, you can add a different component to your team because now you have Maushold Gholdengo, so now you can redirect dark moves away from Gholdengo. At the same time, you know, Fighting Pivot, Gholdengo for Maushold here is also really, really strong. So you can even think of it in that regard. For the dark type matchup, again, you have Primarina here to help you out with Moonblast stuff. Also great against the dragons that are running around. So lots of good ideas here with just this balanced kind of Maushold team. But I still like the Screens idea. I think Screens Maushold is also quite strong in all regards. How about the Sand teams with Tyranitar? So we kind of mentioned Tyranitar before on some other stuff, but how about just like a Sand committed kind of squad? So how about Tyranitar Excadrill with Braviary over here? And there's really two ways to consider this. You can either do the Braviary direction or you can even do the Dragonite direction. And we'll talk about both in a second. But really the team plays out like this. Like you have Braviary with Defiant to discourage, intimidate onto both Tyranitar and Excadrill. So something like this where Tyranitar usually is holding the Assault Vest here, so it is still prone to intimidate. You don't have a clear amulet on this. And the Excadrill, yes, you can always run clear amulet here to prevent intimidate, but sometimes you're a little bit lacking in damage. So you can forego that and just say, look, I'm gonna go Life Orb here. And if you want to intimidate me now, great, but you're gonna make my Braviary do a ton more damage. And then now at the same time, you also get access to Tailwind. So now both of these options can go for or have speed control on their side. Now Tyranitar can be super fast, not just only the Excadrill. And then from here, Fire, Water, Grass stuff. So once again, Primarina, Volcarona, and the Sinistcha, believe it or not, looks really, really strong here on a team like this. And now you have the Trick Room matchup because you have access to Trick Room available to you. Tyranitar relatively slow, so you can definitely take advantage with this. Same with Primarina. And then at the same time, you can, soak up damage, and then with Quiver Dance, set yourself up and then just heal yourself back with Sinistcha's Hospitality and even Life Dew, which is also quite strong. You can even just consider it like that. So another good solid 6. And if you don't want the Braviary direction, you can do what we did with our rental and just go straight Dragonite here. So Dragonite, just doing tons of damage with the Choice Band stuff. Then you have Ice Spinner, removing terrain. So, pop Psychic Terrain, pop Rillaboom Terrain. Tons of damage with Outrage and Extreme Speed. Just very standard stuff. But this is a really, really strong and consistent Sand 6 that you can easily pick up and use right from the get-go. If you like the Braviary direction with Tailwind, I think that's also quite strong. Sometimes you'll even see Dragapult on these Sand teams, and Dragapult, along with Tyranitar Excadrill, forming the TED trio. You may have heard of this back in Sword and Shield, but that also involved Togekiss from what I understand. But still, you can definitely even throw in Dragapult here, or you could do what we did with our early Sand teams and just do Salamence, because Salamence can do not only just give you Tailwind, but it also gives you Intimidate on your team. But, you have to take it with a grain of salt. Not as much physical attackers running around. And then there's still like a lot of the Defiant stuff with King Gambit and the Annihilape. So just be aware of that. But something like this with Life Orb Salamence is also quite strong. And it gives you another special attacker on the team that you can rely on. But, just in terms of the 6, I feel like the last slot here is what's really flexible, whether you like Dragapult, Dragonite, Salamence, Braviary. Just really depends on how you want to play it, but I think all of them are quite good in essence. Because again, the game plan is relatively clear. You want to set the Sand for Excadrill to outspeed everything and hit things really, really hard. And then Tyranitar is really good to change weather against the Torkoal Pelipper teams that want to take away weather against Excadrill. And then at the same time, Primarina, just gives you that Dondozo matchup. Volcarona can give you an endgame win condition with Quiver Dance stuff. Sinistcha, again, also useful in, just healing your Tyranitar and Excadrill over time. It's also great at healing your Volcarona. So you can even just think of it like that. You could even do like Excadrill Salamence leads, where you can just set up Tailwind from the get-go, set up Intimidate against the physical attacker. So this way, Excadrill's bulk is a little bit of it gets compensated a little bit, and then you can swap in your Tyranitar in from the back. So this way, Excadrill can also be faster than the other Tailwind teams in that sense, right? So think of it like that, and then at the same time, you can even do Salamence Volcarona, right? Like again, Volcarona definitely appreciates Intimidate support because your physical defense is just not that great. And then Sinistcha, again, will just heal any kind of damage that your Volcarona might take in trying to set up that Quiver Dance. But again, you also have redirection for it too, right? So you can redirect the water moves away from Volcarona with Rage Powder over here. It's also really good at redirecting fighting moves away from Tyranitar and Excadrill. because again, both of them are weak to fighting. So think of it like that. Like extra, Sinistcha is really, really good at supporting a lot of this team. So just it all depends on the matchups, but hopefully some of these leads help you pilot the team. All right, we haven't talked about Hydreigon all that much here, but how about this idea with, again, Hydreigon, Talonflame, and Gholdengo here, and then you might as well just add Primarina because it just makes sense overall. But look at this team. So look, again, you know what you're doing with your Tailwind stuff. You know what you're doing with your Gholdengo with Make It Rain. You're getting debuffed every time you click Make It Rain, and when you click Draco Meteor, same thing, you're getting debuffed. Wipe that away with the Primarina here with Haze, and then look at this. You have a Dragon, Fairy Steel, you have a Fire type, you have a Water type. You can easily add a Grass type here. You can add a Mungus. You could add something like Sinistcha here. Either way, you have something to use here. I'll even just put a Mungus here just for the heck of it. But either way, again, just a lot of aggression here. And then for Hydreigon, you can just do like Assault Vest stuff here, where you can have like Earth Power, you can have Draco Meteor, Heat Wave, and then Dark Pulse. You can definitely consider that. Or you can do the Scope Lens stuff, where you're just trying to set up your crit ideas, with Focus Energy, Draco Meteor, and Dark Pulse, and then lastly, you're just gonna have Protector. You can definitely do this, but again, at the end of the day, just a lot of offense coming out from this type of duo, and again, just different ways that you can approach different matchups. Again, you could just do Talonflame, Gholdengo early on, let Hydreigon and Primarina finish things in the end game if you want. Or you can just do stuff like this with the Mungus, and then have the Blood Moon Ursaluna in the end game, where you can just nuke something and be really good. You could even just do Garchomp here. I think Garchomp also with the double dragon idea, with Talonflame, Gholdengo. If anything, if you replace this with Murkrow, remember this was like the old school Regulation A, quad pair where you have Hydreigon, Garchomp, Murkrow, Gholdengo. There was no really much of a Primarina back then because it wasn't really out. But this was the classic 4. And then you could just do Haze stuff. Then you have Quash, you have Tailwind, you have Foul Play. So lots of synergy with this 4. And then after this, if you really wanted to go this 4, you can even just slap on Maushold. And then you can also slap on Annihilape. And this 6 is still working even now. Because again, lots of different ways you can approach this. But again, this crit set is really useful here with Maushold. Because again, you can redirect things away from the Hydreigon, set it up, come in from the back with Murkrow, click Tailwind, and then just go bonkers with Draco Meteor and one-shot a lot of different things. So you could even just consider it like that. But I definitely also if I were to remove Murkrow and then the Maushold stuff, and if I were to put back Talonflame here, you could even also consider, let me remove Garchomp for a second. You could even also just consider Glimmora here. I think Tailwind, with Gholdengo and Glimmora is always like a really, really solid pairing. And you can take the team with a lot of different directions. You could just go straight Rillaboom here. And then, like I said, you can add back the Primarina. And then this is also another solid 6, all things considered. So I do think Hydreigon, Gholdengo, Tailwind setter is also quite strong. And that's been proven already in the original Regulation A stuff. Okay, so that's going to do it for now, folks. So hopefully you got a sense of where we are in the Regulation H meta heading into the Baltimore Regionals. All of this is subjected to change after that Regionals because then we'll get our first real update based on the results there. But if you're just trying to learn and play the game right now, hopefully you'll use one of the cores that we listed and build around that, and hopefully that will give you success right now in the early stages of the meta. And if you're still interested in coaching and if you need a little bit of help, just in terms of a direction or in terms of, hashing out your EV spreads for your teams and you're just not really sure how to go about it, make sure you sign up for coaching on the channel. Tier 3 sub gets you a one-on-one session with me via Discord call where we get to build the team that you want exactly the way that you want it. And then I will optimize it based on where we are right now in the given meta. Hopefully all of this kind of gives you a sense of where we are. But again, if you need it for Baltimore, we've got you covered. If you just need something for a local tournament that's not Baltimore, of course, then we've also can help you out for that. And if you just need something for ladder play, or if you're just trying to learn overall, if you're a newer player, we can build you a team that's easy to use from the get-go. All right, so check out coaching. Again, video description has the link to join the channel with that tier 3 sub. If you also look in the pinned comment section of the video, or even any video for that matter, we have the same link where you can join that channel with that tier 3 sub. Okay, so we'll be back with another video in the next one. Peace out. and have a good one.